Well, welcome to PS 69Q, and we want to thank the wonderful principal of the school, Martha Vasquez, for her leadership. And Martha, we can see already from the classroom we were in how well things are going here and the great energy of the kids and the commitment of your teachers and staff. So I just want to thank you for your leadership. And I want to say to everyone, this is an opportunity for us today to talk about the many important steps that are part of both the budget we announced this last Thursday and the labor deal with the UFT we announced the week before. In combination, a series of important reforms and step forward that we're going to go over today. And I'm thrilled to be joined by our school's chancellor, Carmen Farina, Congressman Joe Crowley, Councilman Danny Drum, Majority Leader Jimmy Van Bramer, Assembly Member Francisco Moya, and a parent who's going to speak on behalf of the many parents here, Laverne Maison, PS 69 parent and community board member. And I want to thank all the parents who are here, the parent leaders and activists. And I always say that parents who are involved not only help make their own kids' lives better and their own kids' education stronger, they help to improve the schools that they're involved in. They help to improve our school system overall. So I want to thank all of the parents who are with us here today. As I said, the budget in combination with the new teacher's contract indicates a whole series of changes that are going to be deeply felt at the grassroots of our school system, that are going to make a real change for the better for our children and for our parents. One of the areas that we're immediately making changes in is the area of arts education. And a lot of us had the pleasure of being in room 100 and seeing the arts class there. It was truly inspiring. The level of engagement and creativity and energy that these kids felt was something that would make every New Yorker proud. They were totally absorbed in their work. They were absorbed in the creativity. They were expressing their ideas, their feelings, and they had a teacher who was encouraging them every step of the way. And it's a reminder that arts education really matters. It helps kids to better express themselves. It helps them to think critically about everything they see in their lives. It's not just good for our spirits and our souls. It's good for our minds. It helps to develop young minds. And it's clear that that's happening here at PS 69Q. By the way, this is a school that has a lot of other great attributes, including a great orchestra and chorus that recently performed very well at the state music competition, so congratulations for that as well. And a school that has a great tradition of partnership with organizations like the Dancing Classroom, the New Victory Theater, Jazz at Lincoln Center, and the Joyce Theater. Now, you're going to hear from Laverne Maison in a moment, and she has a daughter, Savannah, here at PS 69Q. Savannah's in kindergarten, but she's already engaged in music, in writing. She's already expressing all of her creativity, and she's growing as a result. She's becoming stronger educationally. Apparently, Savannah has already written a notable short story called A Scary Sleepover. I look forward to reading A Scary Sleepover. It would be a chance for me to come up with something after the very hungry caterpillar that I've spoken so much about lately. Now, our goal and what this year's budget starts us down the road of is making sure that every school benefits as PS 69Q has from a strong arts education program. We've added $20 million into next year's budget to facilitate arts education efforts throughout the school system, to preserve a lot of what's working and build upon it to reach more and more schools. We have a long way to go, but this is an important step forward towards making arts education universal throughout our school system. Now, in the same combination of the budget and the teacher's contract, you see a number of other reforms, and one of them is in the area of parental involvement. It's so important that we're talking about that here because this is a school where parents are deeply involved and it really makes a difference for the school. I know as a public school parent myself that when parents are involved, things change for the better. I also know that involved parents have the opportunity to figure out what's going to work best for their kids and to stay on top of their kids in terms of their reading, their homework, etc. The new UFT contract really gets at this by providing more time for parent-teacher conferences. We're doubling the number of parent-teacher conferences. We're making parent-teacher communication a weekly activity, a regular part of every teacher's work, so there's constant interchange with parents. And the kind of opportunity to give parents the guidance they need as to how best to support their kids. This is something that's been long overdue, allowing us to take a much more strategic approach to engaging parents in their kids' education. So that's a big step forward in the contract. And there's another important point in the budget, and it also was pertinent to what's happening here at PS 69Q, which is the reality of space in our city. We have too many schools that are overcrowded. We have too many schools that are forced to use trailers, even though they don't want to, and we want to address that. This is a school that has dealt with overcrowding for a long time. This is a part of Queens that's one of the most overcrowded areas of the entire city. Our plan is to devote substantial resources to addressing this long-standing challenge. Our four-year capital plan provides $4.4 billion in capital investment for new space, and specifically an additional almost $500 million to work to remove trailers in as many locations as possible to free up schoolyards to help make sure kids can be in traditional buildings. That combined investment is going to have a profound effect in addressing the overcrowding crisis in this city. And that goes together with a host of other changes we're making: full-day pre-K, after-school programs for middle school kids, elements of the contract that will also allow more and more reform, reducing and relaxing both chancellor's regulations and UFT work rules, so up to 200 schools can innovate. There's so many pieces of this combined set of actions that will truly change the face of New York City schools for the better. And a lot of these are things that are long overdue. For too long, we had to get to full-day pre-K, and we didn't till now. For too long, we needed to expand middle school, and we didn't till now. For too long, we had to address the overcrowding crisis. We had to find a way to engage parents more systematically in their children's education. We had to recognize the powerful role of arts and culture in children's development. Now we're starting to move on all these fronts decisively, and it's going to make a big difference. A quote I deeply appreciate that typifies everything that we're talking about from Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the president of Liberia, the winner of the 2011 Nobel Peace Prize. And she said in her memoir, quote, "If your dreams do not scare you, they are not big enough." Well, we have big dreams for the kids of this city, for the parents of this city. We know it'll be hard to achieve, but we know we can do it, and we're challenging ourselves to go as far as possible on their behalf. Just a quick note en español before I bring up Chancellor Fariña and some of our other guests. Sabemos que una excelente educación es vital para el desarrollo de los niños. Por eso estamos anunciando importantes reformas para traer a nuestras escuelas al siglo XXI desde más esfuerzo para involucrar a los padres hasta más entrenamiento para maestros. I am no Danny Drum, but I try my best to speak in Spanish. With that, I welcome a woman who's doing an extraordinary job, already making a huge positive impact on our schools and helping our children every day, our school's Chancellor, Carmen Fariña.
Thank you. If being scared is affecting your dreams, I haven't slept in a couple of weeks, so that's a beginning. I want to say how excited I am about everything the mayor said. In the first place, you need to know that we've exceeded the number of middle schools who applied for our extended day programs, and we have a lot more than we thought we would, and it's fabulous. And I think every one of them has also been chosen with care by their principals. They're working with CBOs who are going to add arts programs. They're going to add social emotional needs. They're going to have additional time on task academically. And every one of those programs is tailor-made for the principal who chose it and the school that they chose it. I think the UPK initiative is phenomenal. I think having kids an extra year in school, particularly students that are English language learners, is really going to make a major difference because they're going to have the whole set of vocabulary and speaking that is just going to enhance their getting into kindergarten, and it's really very, very important. We also have expanded our summer school. Summer Quest is actually going to be now enlarged in Queens, in the Bronx, as well as parts of Brooklyn, which is a 9 to 6 program where kids are going to be getting a lot of extra support, both in reading and actually taking trips, exposing their experiential level, which I think is really, really important. But the arts programs, to me, are really like the most fabulous thing, because the more I see about New York, this is not just about having fun in school or learning how to sing and dance. This is also about workforce. Many jobs in New York City are based on the arts, and now having students being able to be exposed to art forms that will then enhance their learning, but also help them get jobs, I think is very, very important. I think in terms of the contract, I am beyond thrilled about the parent piece. And just so you know, one of the things we've already started doing is developing a year-long calendar so that, for example, in September, we're urging principals to start making September the day they set up appointments for parents whose students have IEPs. No longer will parents have to wait till mid-year to find out what's on the IEP. It's going to be in September. We're also asking schools to put an emphasis on immigrant parents who are new to the country in September and October. So these parents will be made to feel welcome. And the calendar for the whole year will specify what we think the skills are. October, November, parent-teacher conferences, and in possibility in middle school and high school, student-led conferences. We're having all-day Saturday workshops for parents to get the word out that this is a whole new day, and a lot of the things they need help in, we are going to help them get it so they can go to school feeling very comfortable and feeling good about themselves. Obviously, I'm also thrilled about the professional development. Many of the things we've tried to do in the last few years, teachers were excited about doing, but they didn't have the time on task to develop the professional development. I know this is a school where I'm sure the principal and staff have spent a lot of time on their own putting together the Common Core initiatives. They're laughing. I know it's more than just a little bit of time. And now we're building the time in so people can actually have professional discussions about the work. So I'm really excited about a lot of the initiatives in the contract, but more so that beginning in September, we'll be able to start a new day, putting parents, teachers, and all educators first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Congressman Joe Crowley has been incredibly supportive of our efforts to improve the schools. He's been a great partner in Washington on so many fronts. I'd like to welcome him to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was hoping I'd get the platform as well.
I can do that for you if you like.
I now have someone I can ask how the air is up there. No, that's not going on. No. You don't feel my pain. I appreciate that. But it's great to join the mayor and the chancellor as well as the other elected officials and parents here at PS 69. This is a storied school. If you all remember back with the rocker, the baseball player who played for the Atlanta Braves and criticized the 7-line. It was the students of this school who came to the defense of Jackson Heights and of the entire Queens community, and it's in a book form. This has always been a diverse school, and one that has always dealt with the issue of overcrowding and still produces incredible citizens for New York and for our country. I mean, I thank the present principal, but the past principals as well as the administrators and the teachers for what they do to produce such great citizens and productive citizens. And I'm also here to laud the mayor's proposal and to add to the budget of expanding schools and lowering class sizes. We in the federal government create mandates. We say you won't get funding unless you do certain things. And rightfully so, we've put some emphasis on testing and evaluation, but that's not all that educating is about. Having 30 and 35 or more kids in a class is not helping that teacher, but it's also not helping that student in his or her experience in education. And you only get one shot, really, for the most part. You get one shot. If you don't make it in those early years, it makes it much more difficult to be successful later in life. So we appreciate the efforts, Mr. Mayor, you're putting into in reducing school class size, creating more schools and more space. And just lastly, as well as the chancellor as well, we thank you for your efforts. Also, the issue of music and arts. As a musician, I know how much more my life has been fulfilled because of what I was taught at a young age. And the emphasis that we have been placing on math and science, and the applied math and science in engineering. We just saw some young children downstairs, in art class, but they were building structures, buildings. You need those dreamers, people with vision to be those next engineers, those next planners. And that's as much as an important part and aspect of the growth of the mind as math and science, which we certainly want them to excel at. But you also have to have that extra gift as well, and exposure to the arts and the appreciation and all that comes with it, as the mayor so eloquently said. So I applaud you being here today, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your emphasis on education.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. Now the man who has the honor of representing this district, and even more so being the chair of the City Council's Education Committee, a former teacher himself and an exceptional speaker in both English and Spanish, Councilmember Danny Drummond. I'm going to bring this up for everyone from that point on.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've heard of an educator's educator, and I consider our chancellor to be one of those people. But this is an educator's budget. And what I like about this budget so much is that it really took a lot of hints from our parents and from our teachers in the schools to understand what's important to move education forward in New York City. So from UPK, where we know we can get to those kids early and give them that quality education which they so desperately need, to making sure that our middle schoolers are getting the support that they need at a very difficult age, I might add, and making sure that they have after-school and summer programs, to the UFT contract, which is going to provide additional time with parents and also additional time for staff development, professional development in our schools, and allowing people to make those decisions on their own in school-based decision-making, things that go on, the smaller contract that the chancellor is working on as well, giving people that freedom. One of the things that I heard in the classroom today with the teacher was that she said she had the freedom. She was given the freedom by the principal to integrate arts into the social studies curriculum. The 4th grade curriculum in social studies requires coverage of New York City. That's what we teach, the history of New York City and the American Revolution. Here was this teacher bringing the arts and integrating that into what she was doing in the classroom. So for all of these reasons, Mr. Mayor, we are very grateful that you have shined the light and put the focus on what our schools need, and we are very grateful for what it is that you have done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now from the district right next door, our Majority Leader, Jimmy Van Bramer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And obviously, I'm thrilled with so many of the wonderful aspects of the budget as it relates to our public education system. But as the chair of Cultural Affairs, the arts and education piece is particularly important. And I was so thrilled to be a part of a city council under the leadership of Speaker Mark Viverito that included funding for this piece in our response to the mayor's preliminary budget, and thrilled that the mayor included that in his executive budget. That is a great victory for the kids of the city of New York, and a great example of how the city council and the mayor are working together. We saw those children downstairs, and while the $20 million in the budget is an incredible number, an incredible thing, you cannot put a price tag on the experience of children as they interact with the arts. And the teacher, I think it was Mrs. Gilbride, said that what she wanted in that art class is for the children to be able to stop for a moment and look at their world, think, rest, and sort of think about the world that they live in. And one of the girls that we talked to was drawing a scene from her block and her street, while other kids were drawing landmarks and the Empire State Building and the Brooklyn Bridge. And it was interesting because she said, in response to a question by the mayor, that as she walked to school, she wanted to sort of think about her block, her neighborhood. And that's what she was drawing. It was a beautiful moment. It's exactly what happens when children are working with their hands, when they're drawing, when they're creating, when they're dreaming, and you cannot put a price tag on that. You cannot put a price tag on that. And we know that when children know the arts, when the arts are part of their education, their results are better. Their thinking is improved, and it is such a great and exciting thing to be working in a city council that appreciates the arts, working with a mayor and a chancellor that appreciate the arts in schools. And I just want to say one last thing. We want to make sure that the city is one where there's equity and there's access to the arts for everybody, every child in every school in every neighborhood. And this plan starts us down that path, because if you have arts in our schools, in every single neighborhood, in every single class, we get to that very, very special and magical place where every child experiences the power and wonder of the arts. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And last but not least, as we said earlier, one of the epicenters of the overcrowding crisis in the city has been Queens. And the borough president has been a champion to address this challenge. We want to introduce the borough president of Queens, Melinda Katz.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank this mayor for all the work that he's done. He doesn't need a GPS to find here in Queens, and we are very thankful for that, Mr. Mayor. But I am shocked. You know, I'm about 20 years in this business now. And I keep being shocked at how New Yorker-friendly and how user-friendly Mayor de Blasio is attempting to and actually effectuating change in making government much more user-friendly to the parents, to folks that need to work the system, to people that need information. And so we thank you for making it more accessible, making information more accessible to folks. This is the most overcrowded area. This is the most diverse school, by the way, on the planet. And so we are excited to have everybody here celebrating the arts and celebrating what we are doing and what the mayor is doing for education. He's not only doing full-day pre-K, which, by the way, was an amazing fight, right? The fight was who wanted to pay for it, and they were both fighting that each one wanted to pay for it themselves. But the issue becomes then that pre-K became the understood best thing for our children. And I think that was the best part of that fight. But at the same time, getting our kids out of the trailers, that has been second nature now in the borough of Queens. And this budget provides that we will get kids into classrooms. And I am very thankful for that. We also need to make parents more in control of their children's destiny. And I think when I was out campaigning and out in the streets with folks, one of the biggest complaints we kept hearing from parents is we don't really know how to work the system of the Department of Education, how to do the lottery for pre-K, how to get our kids into high school. We don't know who to turn to and ask questions to. And one of the great things about this budget is it really does take into account getting parents more involved. And last but not least, someone was in my office, Mr. Mayor, the other day and said it should not be STEM, it should be STEAM. Add an A in there for arts. And I thought that was an exciting proposition. But arts in our school system, I believe, leads to a full education. Anybody that's ever heard me speak anywhere in the city of New York knows that my dad founded the Queen's Symphony Orchestra. My mother's the founder of the Queen's Council on the Arts, and they truly believe that if you don't graduate knowing an instrument or music theory or some education in the musical field, then you did not get a full education. And that's what this budget does. So we are excited about the prospects of it. We're excited about the 160 languages and traditions and cultures and arts in our borough here being fulfilled in our classroom every single day. So thank you.
Really respect the fact that Melinda Katz can give commentary on whatever the topic is at hand and an advertisement for the borough of Queens simultaneously. Well done. Well done. All right, with that, we are going to take questions on this topic, and then we'll do some off-topic questions as well. So first on this topic, on the education budget and on the teacher's contract. Yes?
A question about the arts education. The $20 million, is that all new money, or is that sort of raising what the city had been putting towards arts education?
Well, the $20 million is new.
So what is then the entire budget for arts education?
Damn good question. I don't know if I know it off. We're going to get that to you.
And what is that $20 million mean? Do we have any sense of how many schools will get arts classrooms or a dedicated arts?
So that's what I'll start, and Carmen, feel free to jump in if you'd like. The notion here is we made the allocation with the goal of reaching as many schools that do not yet have arts education. What the Chancellor is doing, which I think is very important and innovative, is looking at different ways to do that. There's a lot of wonderful nonprofits that can bring arts education to a school in a very effective manner, in a very cost-efficient manner. There's a lot of schools that can actually work together to share their resources. So our goal is to reach as many schools as possible, but the important thing was to dedicate the funding and then give the folks at the DOE the next few months to figure out how best to use it and how to make sure it'll reach as far as possible by September.
Follow up on that, the arts class that you visited today, how rare is that in the school system, or do most elementary schools have a dedicated arts teacher like that?
I would say most elementary schools have it. I think one of the things that we want to see more of is a continuum of certain art forms. For example, I visit a lot of middle schools, and one of the things I'm hearing from middle schools, wouldn't it be great after my kids play in the band if they could continue that in high school? So our hope is that some of this money will allow us to put out grants where schools will apply elementary, middle, and high school as a team, so that there will be some art forms that the kids actually have a continuum over time. Because I think all students should graduate high school being proficient in some art form. I think also for middle schools, one of the things we're finding is particularly meaningful is drama and theater. Because if you're looking at the Common Core, it's about how do you speak before an audience, how do you celebrate. We're also looking at Teen Thursdays, which actually just started last week. And we are looking at cultural institutions to be partners in this. This is not just schools, where adolescents can go from 4 to 6 on a Thursday to a cultural institution. We started with 5. We will be expanding it over time so that they see museums as an extension of their classroom learning. We're only doing American history in museums. We're starting this Friday a concert series at Tweed in the Rotunda. We've invited, in fact, the first school we invited was from Queens to come in and serenade us, because isn't it a great way to say that the arts make you feel better? So on Friday at 2 o'clock, we will hear the sounds of kids singing, and nothing gets better than that. So it's really an emphasis in many different ways of bringing it into the system.
Sally?
$4.4 billion.
Louder?
Is $4.4 billion the total capital budget for the Department of Ed? And also, I know that you recently asked agencies to kind of reassess their capital targets to make them more realistic. Does this reflect like a lower number that they handed in once they did that exercise, or is it higher?
Yeah, $4.4 billion is for all of the efforts that we are undertaking over the next 4 years to address the space challenges of this system, whether it's new buildings, whether it's pre-K centers, whether it's efforts to reduce overcrowding. We felt very strongly, after having looked at the capital budget that was left to us, that there were some unrealistic assumptions that we have now clarified in the way we presented the timelines within the budget. Separate is the almost $500 million that's going to be focused on getting kids out of trailers, and that's going to be an ongoing effort as well.
So, does this reflect, did the Department of Ed cut down its capital budget then when it came?
No, it's not about cutting down. It's about, again, we'll get to the specifics, but the notion is some agencies we thought had unrealistic assumptions about what they could spend year by year. So you saw where the total changes were. There was a major new investment in education, a major new investment in affordable housing, and a major new investment in infrastructure, repaving of roads and repair of bridges. But what we changed also was the timelines on some of the investments that we didn't think would be achieved on the originally proposed timeline, because we wanted to make sure money was being spent in real time and that money was being applied first where it could best be used and most quickly be used.
In terms of the $4.4 billion in capital funding, is there any sense of how many classroom seats that will create and where those classroom seats will be?
We'll get you the projection. The obvious point that's been made, a number of times over the last few weeks is we want to go right at the heavy overcrowded areas of the city. Central Queens, one of the most overcrowded. Lower Manhattan, North Shore, Staten Island. There's a variety of areas that have had systemic overcrowding, and the first focus of this money is to go at that and reduce that overcrowding. On topic, yes.
Just along with the overcrowding, at the capital budget hearing,
Again?
at the capital budget hearing earlier, someone from the DOE had mentioned that some schools are okay with the classroom trailers. They've kind of grown used to them, and it was suggested by some advocates that it might be unrealistic to say that all the trailers are going to be phased out. That's been a promise that's come about before. Are there any concrete plans to make sure that those are phased out in a certain amount of time?
It's a very helpful question. I mean, one, we're saying explicitly we expect to greatly reduce the use of trailers in this 4-year plan, but we're not saying that we know every single last trailer will be gone. We want to make sure that, in fact, we are accounting for the examples where a principal may feel the trailer provides them some capacity that's important to them. We know there's plenty of cases where the trailers are a problem, and we want to go at that head on. But we also want to respect if a principal has a particular use of a trailer that they have the flexibility to do that. On topic, yes.
Thanks. This is a question about the contract and the absent teacher reserve. I've heard some people express concern that when a principal can return ATR to the pool for problematic behavior, that the definition of problematic behavior is a little vague. Can you help us understand what are some of the bases that a principal could return one of these ATRs to the pool for?
Well, I think the notion here, I'll start and then Carmen jump in. I think the notion here is that, we trust the principals to make an evaluation, and they have to look at those individuals and see if they think they can be productive in the context of their school. So clearly they have to, give them a chance to show what kind of performance level they're at. But I think the bottom line is that we have a lot of faith in our principals and the professionalism of our principals, and this process allows them to evaluate afresh the status of some of these individual teachers and determine if they might work. And if we find that over several of those occasions someone is not working, then there is an expedited process for removal. I've said throughout, and I want to really frame this before Carmen comes up, that there are some very capable teachers in the ATR pool who deserve an opportunity, and this new plan allows them to get that opportunity. There are some other people who may not belong in the profession at this point, and this also allows us to make that adjustment. So I think it's very balanced.
I actually think the mayor said it very well. I think it's very clear that a teacher who shows up on time, if she's being assigned a new school and it says, what can I do and what kind of kids am I serving, and then works in the course of the day and the kids are actively engaged, is not a problematic teacher. And on the other hand, conversely, the opposite might be problematic. So I would just say it's a matter of using common sense, but really understanding, and I can't say this enough, that there are many people in the pool who are really eager to get back to work. We've already seen some of those already. In fact, we've gotten some really good response from the field. So I look forward to really being able to do what's best for kids, and that's our #1 goal.
Thank you. I want to take a point of privilege here that our speaking order got a little jostled around, and I neglected to bring up our parent activist. With my apologies, I want to have Laverne Maison come up now. PS 69Q, parent Laverne Maison.
Hi, I'm here as a parent of a kindergartner here at PS 69, as a member of the Community Educational Council of District 30, and as an after-school director here in District 30. And I'm really excited that the mayor's here supporting arts education, paying attention to some of the issues that we have been working on so hardly in the Educational Council, such as overcrowding in our schools. I want to say this because I probably won't have the privilege to do this again, but a little bit over a year ago, Mayor de Blasio, at that point, Advocate de Blasio, came to the school that I was working in, IS 126, and promised that if he was elected, he would expand middle school after-school programs, and he did. So I want to say thank you for that, and for sticking to your promises. I also want to definitely say a little bit about how important arts education is. My daughter is in kindergarten, and she's already receiving music instruction, and I can definitely see the benefits of that. Combined with the writing that she does, We know the research is there that arts education definitely supports academic growth. And I can definitely see that. And I'm so happy that everyone here, the elected officials, is supporting this cause. As a member of the Educational Council, this is something that we have pushed so hard for. So we're really excited that this expansion in funding is available. I want to say that as with the Educational Council, we've worked with Danny Jerome to provide training for parents on how to support their kids in the arts. So we want to say thank you for that also. And I'm definitely so excited that this opportunity is here, that our kids will receive the attention that they need. Our kids can be exposed to all arts forms, the visual and the performing arts, and that you are paying attention to us so closely. So thank you, Mayor, and thank you, all elected officials.
Thank you very much. And congratulations, Laverne, and thank you for all you're doing to help our schools. And I'm looking forward to reading Savannah's book. I hope I can get a copy. I'm looking forward to that moment. Let's see if there's anything else on topic before we go to off topic. On topic. On topic.
Yeah, hi. The money that's going to middle school, after school, that's part of the normal increase in state aid that assumedly would have gone somewhere else in the education budget, and you might have talked about this, but do you know where that money is being, diverted from? Where it would have gone?
Well, I think that's obviously a theoretical. So let me explain how this works. The state legislature explicitly indicated that money could be used for after school, among other types of initiatives. And as you know, there's going to be dedicated after-school funding starting next year. So this was a prelude to that, and it allowed us the security to know that we could get our after-school program up and running on a large scale. Because we did not specifically anticipate a certain increase in state aid, education aid from Albany, it was never part of our preliminary budget plan to have that specific dollar figure, and that was, thank God, a bigger increase than was originally assumed. By the way, I'll hasten to add, particularly in the presence of the Chancellor and the Education Chair, I'd like to think of it as a down payment on the kind of resources we deserve as a result of the Campaign for Fiscal Equity lawsuit from years ago and the billions actually still owed New York City that we're going to keep fighting for. But the additional state aid money was something that was better than the original projection, certainly allowed us to make that investment in after school and in other areas as well. So the fact is it was something we could do new, not something that was being taken away from other areas.
One follow-up about the contract. One of the key reforms that it talks about is the innovation initiative in schools, PROS part. I'm just wondering, for schools that choose to take that on and apply to be part of it, what kind of support is the DOE and the city going to provide them so that they're able to kind of do those reforms with the freedom to do?
I'll start and pass it to Carmen. Look, what's so powerful about that example, and you've seen examples like this around the country, where, at the most grassroots level, the individual school, there's been a real commitment from teachers, from principals, from parents to make a series of reforms and make the school work better and make it respond to the specific realities of that community. So there's a really good history to draw upon here of why this is a model that actually engages people's energies, and you end up, in many cases, with a much stronger product because the folks on the ground, the folks who were part of the process actually got to make some of the decisions. So we're very excited about what that model could lead to. Let me pass it to Carmen to talk about specific supports that will be available.
One of the things is that there will be a committee that's comprised of UFT as well as people from the DOE that are going to come together to evaluate the proposals and then also to see what kind of supports they need from anyone at the DOE. So we anticipate to be very much involved because we also want to do research on what's working and what's not working, and to some degree also make sure that whatever the leader is who's going to work with all these schools is someone who's very sympathetic and very much in sync with the reforms that are inherent in this kind of light contract.
Okay, let's go to off topic. Off topic. Yes, sir.
James Ford from WPX Channel 11. We've seen evidence of Vision Zero working, but over the weekend we did have 2 fatal hit and runs that are still unsolved. Can you respond to those and talk about what more Vision Zero might be able to do to address these lingering issues?
We take every one of these crashes very seriously, and as you know, NYPD is stepping up both its everyday enforcement efforts, but also its investigatory efforts. So there's a much greater emphasis being placed on investigations after crashes. Some of the first elements of Vision Zero have started to take effect, the greater enforcement and the greater number of personnel being applied to enforcement, and a lot more at public education has gone on, some of the original speed cameras, but you're going to see a lot more in the coming months. Obviously, the large number of new speed cameras around our schools and additional elements, changes in design of key roadways and areas that have been particularly problematic, speed humps. You're going to see a lot of measures starting intensely over the next few months. So I would say we have a lot of evidence that Vision Zero policies are working already. We know there's a lot more to implement, and then we'll have a good ability to see how effective they can be.
Follow-up.
Yep.
When a hit-and-run driver is caught, which is somewhat rare, actually, the penalties tend to be light, up to a year in prison. Is there any interest by your administration, or maybe anyone from the federal or state delegations that are here, in stiffening those penalties?
I'll start, and if Assemblyman Moyer wants to jump in because it's a state issue, feel free. We said it when we first announced the Vision Zero initiative in January here in Queens, that yes, we think that increased penalties is another part of the discussion, but I would hasten to add that even right now, stronger enforcement and stronger follow-up on the crashes can result in some cases in applying some of the penalties that are now available by law in a more effective manner. So I think you're going to see us do more with existing laws while looking for opportunities to strengthen the laws and increase the penalties. Do you want to add?
And there are several.
Come on up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. There are several pieces of legislation that were introduced this year in the state legislature that goes to address that issue, and we're more than happy to get you the sponsors who are actually putting that together.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Mr. Mayor, the NYPD is set to announce that it's going to stop confiscating condoms from sex workers. Civil rights groups sort of applaud the change, saying that the threat of confiscation was preventing sex workers from carrying them, so therefore more sexually transmitted diseases can be done. But critics of the change say, well, you're taking away evidence. Could you explain the thought process behind this change in the NYPD?
I think it's the right thing to do. I applaud the NYPD, and I last year supported the legislation on a state level that would achieve the same idea. Look, I think you just summarized it. A policy that actually inhibits people from safe sex is a mistake and is dangerous. And there's a number of ways that you go about putting together evidence. And I have absolute faith in Commissioner Bratt and his team, and they felt that this was not the right way to go, that the previous policy was not the right way to go, and that they could be effective in gathering evidence without it. So I think it's the right thing to do.
Another NYPD question. This weekend, the New York Times ran an extensive story about what they described as the citywide debriefing team, where officers kind of comb the population of prisoners in New York City prisons, identifying mostly Muslim individuals who they then ask to work as informants for them. But it seemed from the tenor of the story that a lot of these people described feeling like they were being pressured to do this. As you read the story, what was your reaction? Do you approve of this program?
Well, I want to know more about it, and I'll be speaking to Commissioner Bratton about it. Look, I think the simple concept here, and it's consistent with the way we've approached the surveillance issue, it's consistent with the way we've approached the stop and frisk issue, is we're focused on effective law enforcement, we're focused on the fight against terror, but we're also focused on healing the relationship between police and community and respecting constitutional rights. So that's a balance we seek in everything we do. I'm going to learn more about how this is approached and see how it's applied to different communities, and then we'll have something to say about it. But I know that Commissioner Bratton shares my views on the need to strike that balance.
Do you think, just from what you read in the story, that it maybe raised alarms?
I don't conjecture based on a media report. I really want to hear directly from the Commissioner. Sal.
Mayor, I'm not sure if you've been asked this already, but the Working Families Party is contemplating running a challenger against Andrew Cuomo this year, and I was wondering, as somebody who was involved previously with or maybe continually with the Working Families Party, whether you think they should support him in this race or come up with maybe a more progressive candidate for their choice.
I don't get into the intricacies of what the Working Families Party does. I obviously will be supporting Governor Cuomo for re-election, but I think The WFP has, as you know, a very substantial membership and a complicated leadership system, and I leave it to them to make those decisions. Rich.
Mr. Mayor, the 9/11 Museum opens later this week. I'm wondering what do you anticipate your reaction to it will be? And also about the $24 charge, would you plan on lobbying the federal government to get involved to try to support that museum?
Yeah, look, I think the site obviously has national and international meaning, and we want to work with our congressional delegation on ways to appropriately involve the federal government in, running and supporting that site. And certainly, we want to look for every way we can to reduce that admission charge. So I think it's a very valid topic. Bless you. Very valid topic for an examination of a real federal role in it going forward.
On the U of T contract, just wondering, for the sake of...
Are you going back on topic? This is exciting. Okay, we're back on topic, Phil.
Want to make sure that we have the accurate, not the net total, but the total expenditure for the U of T contract alone, all the way through 2020. Is it correct that it's $7.3 billion?
I will get Dean Foulahan to get you all the numbers so you see the exact play out over time. Okay? I want to make sure we do it accurately. There's several different pieces to the equation, so I want to show. But the net is the crucial point, because the cost savings, I want to emphasize, the cost savings from that contract alone, and obviously extrapolating it out, given the Municipal Labor Council vote, the kinds of savings we're going to have from health savings overall across all the contracts would be $3.4 billion. There's another $1 billion we get from the stabilization fund. So there's very substantial cost savings offsetting the contract and cost savings that are thoroughly enforceable and guaranteed. So we want to lay all that out to you so you see it. Thanks, everyone.